All I wanna do is chop, 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 chop up a body. Chop, 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 chop in a bodies. It's one of my favorite hobbies. At the park in the dark in the middle of a packed out rich hotel lobby. I'm chop, chop, chopping up bodies. It's one of my favorite hobbies.
Hello everyone, my name is Arditha and welcome to my nurse guide. Without any further ado, let's jump straight into it. The nurse's power, Spencer's last breath, is a very unique power in the fact that the nurse uses it to traverse through the map as well as chase. If you're holding WASD as nurse, you're going to be having a bad time. That is because the nurse has a default movement speed of 96.25%, which is slower than survivors, meaning you have to use your blink if you want to catch up to them. Speaking of using your blinks to catch up to people, by default the nurse's initial blink is 20 meters long and any subsequent blinks are 12 meters long, meaning that you can teleport up to 32 meters at the touch of a button, which means you can end any chase very quickly if you know how far you need to go. The nurse has the ability to counter and ignore every single method of defense survivors have. Because of this, she is a hyper-aggressive killer. She will be attacking people at all times and she will be terrifying. Now I'm going to be honest with you, the best thing to do with the nurse is just to sit there and take a beating whilst you learn the blink ranges. Until you learn the blink ranges, you're not going to be doing very well as the nurse. However, unlike other people, I do have some tips for you to make this learning curve a bit less harsh. So as you can see here in this footage, the longer you charge the blink, the further it takes you, and you can see with the marker due to Played Flannel, an add-on for the nurse, you can see exactly where you're going to go. A very important tip for the nurse is to remember not to be scared to overcharge your blinks. If you do, you can look down to reduce the range. As you can see in this footage, looking down from a fully charged blink, it still allows me to blink almost 1 centimeter in front of me, and this applies to any range blink. Another very important tip is something that even some of the most experienced nurse players don't realize, and that is that lunging increases your fatigue time significantly. Now, the blink starts off with 2 seconds fatigue time and increases by half a second for each blink. So 2 blinks would be 2.5, 3 blinks would be 3 seconds, etc, etc. However, lunging bumps that up from 2 to 2.5 to 3 to 3.5 seconds of fatigue, which means that you're going to be stunned for longer and the survivor is going to gain more distance on you. So the appropriate play would be to never lunge unless you know for a fact you're going to get that hit, because you're better off just taking a shorter fatigue and getting your blink up again. Otherwise, the longer you're fatigued, the more distance they'll get and the more difficult your next blink will be. Now, something I'm sure none of you expected me to say is that you can get much better at nurse by playing killers that aren't the nurse. And you do this by simply playing consistently and understanding how survivors think and where survivors path. As you can see in this clip just here, which I am replaying, you can see that after the unhook, I didn't blink at the unhook. I blinked to where I knew they would be because I understand how survivors path, and that is one thing that you can do on other killers. Learn where survivors go once they are, in a chase or just they've done something. Learn what they do and then apply that to your nurse. The final tip I have for learning the nurse is to use the fatigue stun to your advantage. Whilst you're fatigued, you do look down at the floor, but you also tilt your head from left to right. During these tilts, you can actually see the world from the corner. You can see where the survivors are and keep tracking them if you just look slightly to one side. So instead of looking at the survivor in the center of your screen, move your camera so that they would be at the left corner or the right corner. When you sway your head to these corners, you will still see their feet, meaning you can keep tracking them and you know exactly where they are so you can do your next blink. This is even easier if you have Shadowborn. Before we get into the playstyle of the nurse, I think we should cover the add-ons first, and the reason for this is because some of these add-on combos can make it so much easier to learn the nurse. And I know lots of people say not to use add-ons on nurse, especially whilst you're still learning her, but those are also the same people that say to use whispers on her, and if someone's saying to use whispers, they're probably not very good at the game. So let's take a look at the first add-on combo. The first combo is by far the most disgusting combo in this entire video game and is way worse than 4 decisive strikes, and that is 4 blinks with no downsides. By equipping Campbell's Last Breath and a wooden horse, you will have 4 blinks and no downside whatsoever. the attribute blink accuracy is not a thing. You have 4 blinks with no downsides. It is disgusting. The next set of combos we'll be talking about are 3 blink combos, which are once again very overpowered, not quite as overpowered as 4 blinks, but still completely unnecessary, and I would highly suggest you do not use them. But nonetheless, the add-ons are Fragile Wheeze by itself, that just provides you with 1 blink flat out, and the second combo is Dark Cincture and a Wooden Horse, which is once again 3 blinks with no downside. Next up is my favourite add-on combo in the game, and that combo is the Range combo. By using ATAXIC Respiration and Catatonic Boy's Treasure, the nurse's blinks can cover most maps, allowing her to have insane map pressure without becoming crutch like with additional blinks. This allows you to ascend to God status if you use this combo. Very fun and doesn't make the game any easier. A very, very solid combo indeed. Whenever I can't get my hands on the blink range combo, my next favourite combo is the travel speed combo. By equipping Anxious Gasp and Badman Keepsake, your blinks reach their destination almost instantly. It does not affect the charge time of the blink, it doesn't affect how far you're going to go, it just makes you reach your destination faster. And the same thing goes for the less effective version of the same combo, which is a Dull Bracelet and a Metal Spoon. What these combos do is allow you to reach your destination faster, giving survivors almost no window to juke your blinks or to double back on you, meaning that your job is going to be much easier in general. And the final combo that I would say is worth using is also another combo that would be very handy when it comes to learning the nurse, and that combo is Reduced Fatigue Time. By using Pocket Watch and White Knit Comb, you have reduced fatigue time and your blinks are not altered in any way. I know the in-game description of Pocket Watch makes it seem like you would need a metal spoon to counteract it, however the description is wrong. Now let's get on to the nurse's playstyle. As previously mentioned, the nurse is very, very aggressive. Because of this, she can actually get her first hit and subsequently her first down within 10 seconds of the match. All you have to do is blink to a survivor's spawning location and you can get a hit. There are several locations in each map in which survivors can spawn, but you can use this diagram as a way to predetermine your own spawning routes. The nurse is actually capable of playing rank 1 against a coordinated team of survivor friends without the use of Ruin due to her potential to tag targets. Whilst playing nurse, if you are in a chase with somebody who's already injured and you see somebody who is uninjured just sat there looking like an easy pick, you can easily switch to them and you won't lose anything from it. Other killers would have to ignore that person and carry on going for the injured person, but the nurse is so strong that she actually gains pressure from this. The nurse can tag targets and make them waste time healing, allowing her to gain more and more map pressure as they aren't doing generators. And a great example of this is whilst carrying a survivor. If you have someone on your shoulder and the rest of the team body block, and you do not get the hook because of that, that is extremely beneficial for you, because instead of just 1 hook, you have gained 4 injuries and you just have an immense amount of snowball potential now as they have to waste so long healing. You can get nurses calling procs, you can blink and surprise on them, you just get so much from that. If you get 4 injuries, that is pretty much GG for survivors, because you just snowball like crazy from that. Another thing to watch out for as a nurse is when survivors vault windows, dropped pallets, or fall from objects, or in fact drop pallets too. Because whilst they are stuck in an animation, that is time in which they cannot move, which means that you can just blink there and hit them for free as they physically cannot move, meaning they can't juke. So do definitely keep an eye out for that, as windows especially are free hits for the nurse. So the next tip I have for you is when it comes to scouting or looking for survivors. As you can see on this diagram, what you should never do is just blink forwards in a straight line, because as you can see, some of your line of sight is blocked and they could be hiding behind any of these objects. So what you should do as an efficient nurse to try and find people is blink in a zigzag shape, because that allows you to see multiple different angles around the same objects, allowing you to have a much higher chance of spotting people as they physically can't hide around the opposite side fast enough due to how quickly your blinks go. So finally, we're going to talk about perk loadouts. The first perk loadout I'm going to give to you is something that I would only suggest for new nurse players, people who desperately struggle downing people with the nurse, and that build is going to be Ruin, Make Your Choice, Barbecue and Chili, and Bitter Murmur. Now, Ruin is a staple for every other killer because you need more time in game, and if you struggle on the nurse then you do want more time to practice, so Ruin is going to be your go-to perk for that. And then you're also going to have Make Your Choice. Make Your Choice allows you to end chases twice as fast after unhooks as you only have to hit them once. So if you do struggle hitting your blinks, then this is a lifesaver for you as you only have to hit it once instead of twice. Then Barbecue and Chili to reward you every time you hook a survivor. It'll give you a chance to see where everyone else is and find your next target. And Bitter Murmur is also going to be like a bit of a bandage for you. Every time that you lose a gen, you'll at least get some information as to where they are, so that if you're struggling to locate people, you can once again see their auras. If you are desperately struggling to track people, however, you can use Bloodhound. Bloodhound is actually especially useful on corn maps, as corn maps are horrible for the nurse, but I would highly recommend not doing that. If you're feeling more confident at the nurse, then I would recommend removing Ruin and using something like Deerstalker or a Nurse's Calling. Nurse's Calling is, once again, as we previously spoken about earlier, is very good for achieving some snowball potential, but Deerstalker also does the same, and especially it works against a Decisive Strike, as you can just leave them on the floor, and you still gain pressure without having to take a DS to the face. But if you're feeling really confident, you can also use Shadowborn. The build that I prefer to use at rank 1 is Shadowborn, a Nurse's Calling, Deerstalker, and Barbecue and Chili. So as you can see, there's no Ruin. The reason for that is I feel like I don't need it on the nurse, so I use Shadowborn as it's just something, it's a flex pick. It makes the game feel nice and it looks nice. It doesn't really help, but it's just comfort. A Nurse's Calling for that snowball potential. Once you start injuring people, it goes crazy from there. Deerstalker, primarily for Decisive Strike users, but I also use it when needed to end games faster. And then we have Barbecue and Chili just to keep the snowball running. And that is going to be my recommendation for rank 1 gameplay. Once you're solid at the nurse, I would recommend that build because you have great snowball potential, and if you don't like Shadowborn, then Make Your Choice is just purely lethal. And there you have it, that is my guide to the nurse. Thank you guys so much for watching, hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next video.